There comes a moment on every true path when the world stops reflecting you, where the feedback loops go quiet, where the applause fades, where your name begins to echo in an empty room. Not because you've failed, but because you've become coherent, and coherence does not seek confirmation. Most men rely upon mirrors. We look to our relationships, our bank accounts, our followers, our performance metrics for reflection to tell us, am I doing okay? Do I still matter? Am I still seen? And when you begin to live from structure, those mirrors shatter, not violently, just quietly. They stop responding the way they used to. They no longer validate your growth. They don't clap for your restraint. They don't celebrate your containment. Because the world around you was built for your earlier signal. And now that signal has changed, and so must the world. This is the threshold most men are not ready for. They say they want truth. They say they want peace. They say they want to be untethered from performance. But when the field goes quiet, when the invitations stop coming, when the phone no longer lights up for attention, they panic because they mistook relevance for resonance. And now they're alone and still and unseen. This silence is not punishment. It is alignment. You're not being exiled. You're being initiated. Because when the mirrors vanish, you get to see who you really are without them. Not who people think you are, not who you are in the proximity to others, not who you are on stage, in service, in motion, but who you are in the quiet. That man is the one who was waiting for you That man is the one who was waiting for you the entire time. I've walked this season more than once. I've felt the withdrawal of attention from those I thought would always walk beside me. I've watched as certain places no longer invited me in. I've spoken truth into fields that once celebrated me, only to be met with silence or discomfort. At first, I questioned myself. Did I go too far? Have I disconnected? Did I lose my relevance? But the deeper truth was this. I had simply stopped mirroring distortion, and so distortion had nothing to grip onto anymore. When your signal becomes clean, the world that depended on your distortion can no longer engage you. They don't know why, they don't know what changed, but they feel it. You're no longer compliant, you're no longer hungry, you're no longer bendable, and so you become less interesting, but only to the part of the world that never truly saw you to begin with. This is the price of coherence, silence. And silence is where the architect is born. Because the man who no longer builds to be seen, builds what is actually needed. He no longer checks metrics. He no longer scans for praise. He no longer explains himself in the hopes that others will understand. He becomes unmirrored, unheld, and in that void, he has the opportunity to become whole. This episode is not about isolation. It's about completion. It's about naming the moment when your growth outpaces your audience, when your evolution creates a dissonance in every relationship still tied to the version of you that needed to be understood. And when those people can no longer find the man they once knew how to manipulate, they simply disappear, or worse, they attack. Because coherence feels like abandonment to the incoherent. And so what do you do when the world no longer mirrors you? You stop looking. You stop checking. You stop performing a version of yourself that fits the story someone else still needs to believe. And you hold the new field alone, silently, completely, until one day a new world finds you, not because you've reached for it, but because resonance, once anchored, can't go unnoticed. It calls in only what is real and it repels everything else. This is how a man becomes an environment, not an opinion, not a voice, not a leader, not a coach, not a spiritual leader, an environment. A place where only the coherent can enter, where only truth can breathe, where only clarity can stay. Because when you no longer bend your structure to remain mirrored, you become the structure that reflects others back to themselves. And that, ironically, is when you are most seen, not as content, not as a brand, but as a field, as a presence, as structure. If you're in the quiet right now, if you feel mirrors falling away, if your audience is shrinking, your circle dissolving, your voice is echoing into stillness, you're not disappearing, you are stabilizing. You're no longer spinning for reflection, you are standing without it. And soon, what truly belongs to your frequency will begin to arrive quietly, precisely, undeniably, because coherence always attracts its match, not by force, but by resonance. You are never meant to be mirrored forever. You are meant to become the man who no longer needs to be reflected to be remembered. You are meant to build what only stillness can birth. You are meant to hold signal long enough for the world to recalibrate around you. This is the path. This is the silence, and you are not alone. This is The Architect Speaks.